So the first demonstrations happened on a Tuesday, but on Friday, some friends had found me unconscious with a noose on my neck at the 10th floor of our apartment. So I was just coming out of a suicidal episode, and they were gathered in my home. So there's the guilt, there's the pain, the body is fatigued and weak, and then there's the shame of it all. So these demonstrations, these protests came at such an opportune time where I was like, now I have something that's bigger than just myself, something that's bigger than my personal demons. And if we can do that for the collective good, then it would be something. Because also my friends are the ones who told me about it. I mean, I did not have the zeal for life and whatnot, but once they said they wanted to go on the streets, I said, I will escort you. I felt as if they would do something to me and say, and later I would surface as a suicidal case. So that's what got me really afraid, because I was like, oh man, I played into this playbook quite well.
Tuko family, our guest today is conspicuous in his appearance, in his eloquence. He's a loud voice in the cause that is happening currently in the country. So today we are privileged to have Kasmuel McOure. I know you know him because his pictures have been doing rounds across social media, but you've also heard him. So let's get to understand this person and his cause. It's not Samuel. Kasmuel.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Kingori.
Yes.
I really, really appreciate it.
Welcome, and thank you for your time.
Asante.
Because you're a very busy person.
Thank you, sir.
I think, can we say the recent days you've been very, very busy?
Oh, it has been.
Past few days.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, but I'm happy.
Yes.
We finally made it happen.
Thank you.
Yes.
We'll start with this personality.
Right.
Your pictures, and I'm talking about these pictures.
Yes.
You have seen them.
Yes.
We have seen them in the streets.
Yes.
People are there in ragged jeans, different ways of dressing, but you're there in your suits, neckties, and a megaphone.
Yes.
Where do you get these suits?
First of all, I make suits, and I mean, for me, suits are nothing too special, but it's because I wore very horrible clothes growing up, and so I grew up poor, which is also quite a bit of an oxymoron, because it feels like the person that is presented does not sound or look or feel like they grew up from a poor background. And that's the other thing which I've consistently strived to say, that you do not have to look a certain way, that wherever you started, your background does not have to define the kind of person that you are. So I remember telling myself that I would love to wear nice clothes. And to me, as a child growing up, I would see on TV or on pictures men wearing suits. I thought suits looked really nice. So I said the moment I could be able to afford suits, I would wear suits. So this for me has always been that thing, a reminder that when we set our minds and hearts to do something or whatever, we can achieve it. So that's where the suits come from. Yes.
Where do you shop?
I actually have a tailoring shop. I make the suits. I have a company and we make suits, and normally I've always made it a preserve of my friends, and just I do like small commissions and whatnot, because it's a thing which I do out of love. And for me, what we do is the classic traditional cuts, and we don't go too far in terms of experimentation. But quite recently, it's a question that a lot of people have been asking, and I might consider going mainstream. I just might, yeah.
An opportunity has presented itself.
Yes.
I'm struggling to speak as fast as you are.
Not to worry. Actually, I need to slow down, because that's another thing which a lot of people tell me, that I talk too quickly.
Fast.
Yes.
But you're also very eloquent.
Yes, but also just, for me to clearly express these kinds of points, I need to kind of slow it down. So yeah, I'll slow it down.
Where have you been? Because we got Gen Z protests.
Right.
Then you popped up as a person, or as one of the loudest voices in these anti-government protests.
Yes. Again, these were not anti-government protests. They are pro-good governance protests.
Oh.
These protests are not that we want to just overthrow a government, because you could, if they were anti-government, it would mean that we have a preferred government or a preferred candidate. But what it is we're saying we will not take bad governance from anyone. So that's what these protests are. We're saying we are not doing the biddings of a certain politician. We are not doing the biddings of the opposition. As far as we are concerned, the government is one. when we say Ruto must go, it's the whole government. It includes the Azimio la Umoja One Kenya coalition, Kenya Kwanza government, and whoever else we have in parliament. It includes all of them because they're under Ruto's government. But the interesting thing people do not know is that this is maybe the only time that I went quite into the limelight. I've been marching ever since I was a student leader at the Technical University of Kenya. I did Fungua Nchi, that when we were protesting against the lockdown. And we did that under the Hospitality and Entertainment Workers Alliance, those kinds of things. And we agitated back then. So we got a bit of media buzz, but that not as much. And we've done walks on mental health and wellness because that's also another cause that I'm very passionate about. We did the march against femicide, and then we were marching as allies, trying to understand how best we can march with our sisters. So consistently, I've been boots on ground, marching for whatever cause. But this particular one was somehow just is the one that kind of propelled me onto national acclaim. So, and it was not anything that was planned because I was just going there to be with my friends because I'd just come from a very traumatic event on that past Friday. So the first demonstrations happened on a Tuesday, but on Friday, some friends had found me unconscious with a noose on my neck at the 10th floor of our apartment. So I was just coming out of a suicidal episode and they were gathered in my home. So there's the guilt, there's the pain, the body is fatigued and weak, and then there's the shame of it all. So these demonstrations, these protests came at such an opportune time where I was like, now I have something that's bigger than just myself, something that's bigger than my personal demons. And if we can do that for the collective good, then it would be something. Because also my friends are the ones who told me about it. I mean, I did not have the zeal for life and whatnot, but once they said they wanted to go on the streets, I said, I will escort you. And now with the mobilization, the singing, I was wearing some baggy, ragged suit. And then photos came out and that's what I thought. I just said, I will put my voice out there because it is the tool I can lend to the movement. I can lend my eloquence, I can lend my time, I can lend my stamina, the looks and whatnot, just to prove to the people that whether or not it's a person in ragged jeans saying these points or a person in a suit, whether it's a person who's disabled or a person who's educated or uneducated, whether it's a woman or a man, all of us stand for the same thing, and that thing is good governance. Yes.
What we do here at Tuko,
yes,
we are pro-family.
Yes.
We like families.
Yes.
And family coherence.
Yes.
So I would like us to while back,
right,
and talk about how had you gotten to a point of you want to take your life away?
All right. So it's a thing that I've been struggling with ever since I was a child. And there's a couple of traumatic events. There was some bullying that went on in my childhood, but I thought that was a norm. But then I also was sexually assaulted as a child. And that just messed things up for me. And consistently, so I was battling ideas of self-worth, the ideas of, am I valuable as a human being? What did I do to deserve this? And of course, there's parts which I also got wrong in the childhood. So, and then that coupled with being a high achiever, because now, you know, that happened with older people, both male and female. But when I couple that with being a high achiever, now I was feeling unsafe playing with people outside, the boys outside. So I just went directly into books. I sunk myself into amassing as much knowledge as I could. And then now when I went to, I was admitted to the Alliance High School. And now there I found a different kind of trouble because yes, you're smart, you're educated, you're top of your class and whatnot, but you're also poor. And I was really struggling with the idea of poverty and religion at the time. And that just really messed up with my self-esteem and self-worth. So I was the kind of kid who would be found in all these functions, trying to just prove that I'm not poor, I'm not worthless. So I did a lot to overcompensate. So I see that's the first time now I was struggling with ideas of suicidality in high school, because it's when it properly just sunk. And that's why I would say the atrocities that happened to me in my childhood caught up with me, because a lot of it also was perpetuated into high school, and there was some bullying in there as well. And it was just a bit of a warped system that I couldn't also speak up against, because I thought, just keep quiet so that you look cool and you fit in. So that's the first time it appears. And I remember one time I just walked out of a night prep exam. We were doing a theory exam, I remember. And I went to the school hall and tried tying a noose around my neck. And I jumped off the steps because where the curtains are, they were a bit high in the school hall. And the rope broke. And I remember just dealing with a lot of guilt and shame. And just from there onwards, I spiraled, stopped studying, sunk into depressive episodes, I sunk myself into music and sports and just things which would make me cool so that I would have the acceptance of people. But deep down, I was really struggling. Yeah.
The reason I ask that question is because, people may now associate your clamor for good governance.
Right.
And say that some of the people who are leading this cause are not stable.
Right.
Health-wise.
Mentally. Yes.
So that's why we had to go back there to understand the source of this particular point in your life.
Right.
So now you come out of that situation and you are with your friends.
Yes.
You join the demonstration.
Yes.
How did you feel like now this is happening in front of your eyes?
Right. And I think just to dial back a little in terms of, it's also a thing I've always kind of struggled with, saying that will my mental health be an impediment of me being successful? It's another thing which I usually struggle with. I ask myself, does a diagnosis define me? Does it mean that I will never amount to anything? And the reason why I do this is to prove to anyone who's struggling that your self-worth is not tied to your demons. Because once you have a healthy community around you, once you have a proper understanding of your vocation, and your vocation, as a good friend of mine told me, is not just your calling. Because I found, yes, my calling is in music, but it's also how you show up in community. It's how you interact with your friends, with the people who are around you. And I've consistently battled with these ideas, asking myself, am I ever going to amount to anything? Or is it just going to be noise with no significance? So now moving forward to the next question, how did this make me feel? When we started, and I've always maintained that there's nothing brave or courageous about me. When I do these things, I'm not doing them from a point of absolute courage. There's some fear involved as well. I'm like, I'm not a trained soldier, so I do not want to hear gunshots. They are very frightening. I do not want anyone to throw tear gas my way because it's very uncomfortable. There's a time it was lobbed, and I remember I was with 3 ladies, and we all sat down and we felt, someone was like, I cannot breathe. And I'm like, I know it feels like we're going to die, but we will not. It's just that this is a very unfamiliar thing. And you don't know if you want to puke or breathe in, breathe out, cry, or just let it all out. It is a very confusing thing to the body. So it was very scary. At first, I really wish it would have stopped there, where it was just tear gas. That's all we had to see. But then now you see people get shot. You see people lose lives. You see people maimed forever. There are people who fought in this liberation who are never going to walk. There are people who are going to be permanently disfigured. There are people who are never going to talk the same, eat the same. People who just walked out of their homes and went to exercise their civic duty, and they're never going to make it back home because we've either lost them or they're hospitalized. These are some of the things that pain me, and some of the things that make me say that because my voice is the best tool I have, I will employ it to the best of my ability, because I do not know. I'm no more special than Rex. I'm no more special than Shuja Kennedy, the baby, the 12-year-old who took 8 bullets.
In Rongai.
I'm no more special than any of these people. And in honoring them, if I am in the best shape right now, if I can speak eloquently about whatever is going on, if I can show up and give even one person a ray of hope, that is exactly what I'm willing to do. Yes.
People are talking about Gen Zs.
Yes.
Are you a Gen Z yourself?
I am. I am. I'm 26. I turned 27 in October. So I'm just at the beginning of Gen Z. Yes. One of the oldest Gen Zs.
There's a lot of confusion around this Gen Z thing.
Yeah.
It seems like you're the people who have made people now realize that they're generations.
Right.
Can you give us a characteristics of Gen Z? Of yourself.
Right.
You and your colleagues.
Right.
Because I am not in that bracket.
So apart from the fact that it spans from around 97 to into the the noughties of the 2000s, we are people who've lived just in the age of information. We've experienced a lot of these apps coming into fruition.
Digital natives.
Yes, we are digital natives, as you've aptly put it, where we've seen all these things coming up, and we've we're not like Generation Alpha, which has found them. We saw Instagram come up. We saw WhatsApp when it was still the time when you couldn't post somebody for their birthday. You had to change your profile picture and your about statement and say, happy birthday, sweetheart, or whatever. Those kinds of things. We are also born into the age of curiosity. Because there are people who fought for certain rights. We've got, a majority of us got the basic needs. And so we've gotten to the point where we are no longer fighting in silence, but as educated people who are highly teachable, we're asking ourselves, what is this system that did not work for my mother? What is this system that did not work for my elder brother? Why would they lie to me that it's going to work for me? We're part of the generation that's questioning, and we are highly malleable, we're highly teachable, and we're very curious in this regards, because you'll realize it's not only a political awakening, but in the sciences of gender dynamics. We're the ones who are questioning and asking, why should women be treated as lesser beings? Why should we have all these kinds of talks trying to make it look like they are subhuman? What are the rights of children? Children should not be treated as subhuman, but as equals. Why should one person or 10 people own majority of the property? Why should an elite 5% own more than 95% of the people combined? So we are in the age of interrogation. And that's the thing about us. We're also very fearless, and we will get in front of a camera and say exactly what it is that we think. And we're very collaborative. We're open to learning and open to action. That's what I would say, I think, is the thing I love the most about our generation. We are also not afraid of making mistakes. We make mistakes, we take our L's, and we move on. Yeah.
Digital penetration,
yes,
was a huge disruptor,
right,
in the world.
Yes.
And now we have seen this disruption move to the political sphere, or
right,
to governance.
Right.
Before you moved to governance and looking at politics from your perspective,
yes,
are there other spheres that the Gen Zs may have disrupted?
Absolutely. I think, and this is where I would say it is very important for us not to interrogate this blindly, because by the time it's getting to a Gen Z revolution, there's something very pivotal that happened. The march against ending femicide. It was also leaderless. It was also fearless. It was tribeless, and they welcomed everyone, and it was peaceful. And before then, you see that the nature of demonstrations and protests changing with the younger population adopting more peaceful means that involved a heavy online mobilization, so that we bring the attention of everybody who cares to listen. But in terms of consciousness, before we got to the political one, Kenya has for a long time been in the loop of understanding masculinity and femininity. We have challenged a lot of those ideals. There's that dangerous stereotype that the woman belongs in the kitchen barefooted. Our generation has challenged that. The notion of tribalism. By the time we are getting born, our parents have also intermarried and intermingled, and we've moved. You find a Kikuyu living in Eldoret, or in Kisumu, a Maasai living where it's not as tribally polarized as it used to be. So we have also entered different fields of education. We've run away from the Dale careers, the typical doctor, architect, lawyer, engineer stereotype, and people are going into animation, sound engineering, film, game design, machine learning, AI. Social sciences are becoming very big as well. Literature, languages, education. We are leaning into tapping into our humanity, not to discredit any of the Dale careers, but I've seen just the way it used to be, where people were just chasing an A for the sake of an A, to our revolution started with informing our empathy and our emotional quotient, knowing that the intelligence quotient does not just stand by its own. Your ability to regurgitate what the teacher taught you is not enough. You have to be high in empathy to understand, where is my friend coming from? Where is my neighbor coming from? How can I be kind? And the emotional quotient, understanding how can I be better regulated in responding to certain situations. Yes.
Allow me to ask you, there are three things that majorly happened,
yes,
and a consequent fourth one.
Yes.
There was I was there in the city, yes, that day.
Yes.
So many people across every street. Then there was the breach in Parliament.
Yes.
After that, there was the dropping of the finance bill.
Yes.
And recently, there was the Twitter space or X space
right.
from the president.
Right.
When you look at these events,
yes.
First of all, how do you perceive each of them and how do they make you feel?
Right. It was a very special moment what these protests were, because there are parts of the protests that I have not made it to. And I thought the place where I was is where the protests were. Mm-hmm. But there are people who were protesting on Ronald Ngala Street who told me this is where the protests were. The people who were on Harambee Avenue, because of course I did like the whole Kimathi Street, Harambee, around Parliament area, archives. But it was highly decentralized groups, highly motivated groups with a common purpose. That was a significance of unity. United by our pain, our sorrow, and our yearning and our hope for a brighter country. That was one of the biggest highlights in my generation. Because remember, we're coming from a point where the Kenyan flag was a highly despicable thing. That if you wore this Kenyan bangle, it used to be it used to be the mark of a conman. Mm-hmm. We used to, yes, remember, they got to a point where we were throwing these things in the dustbins. Mm-hmm. But now we've gotten to the point where this is a firm reminder, it is a solid reminder that we are together. When I see you wearing this thing, you don't need to tell me anything. In my heart, it strikes a chord and it tells me, keep doing what you're doing. We are together. Mm-hmm. It has turned into a symbol of unity. The thing which presidents past have tried to say that we are working on unity. Our main agenda is unity. We have achieved through the collective struggle. That is one, the sheer amount of people, the 1 million strong, the people who marched in the CBD. It is also in the selflessness, because there are people who I found on the streets. I remember there's some 2 Strathmore students, 2 ladies who were marching, and I found them in town looking a bit confused. And they asked, are you going for the march? And I was like, yes, I am. And they were like, can we join you? Do you mind if we join you? I was like, don't mind if you do. And they were saying, could you take us to where the action was? So this is the first day after I've appeared in the papers. And I told them, unfortunately, I'm also looking for the action. So it is proof that every single place you are, whatever this thing is part of the movement. Mm-hmm. And it was proof that your little contribution, whatever you think is little or insignificant, because remember the first time I appeared in these media papers, I appeared without my knowledge. I did not know. I did not say, okay, now I'm going to do this to appear in the media. It was actually in the cross, and people asked me questions, and I answered the questions and moved forward saying, I'm going to look for where these demonstrations are. The most pivotal point was when people breached Parliament, because it proved that when a thing's time has come, no one can stop it. I remember what it looked like, because there was a heavy exchange. People were moving. The police were moving us from Harambee, and then people would say, we go, and we move forward into Nyayo and that Cardinal Otunga. And we moved and moved until it got to a point where the people just overflowed. That's the word I will use, because it was like water. And they just went past the tanks, and the policemen retreated, and the people moved forward with one voice saying that we are occupying Parliament. People might argue and say these are protected areas and whatnot, and that that breach, you might have whatever stance you might have about that breach, but that breach proved that we, the people of Kenya, are the sovereign power in this country. You might have the guns, you might have the money, you might buy all the brains you can, but a people united cannot be defeated. The voice of the people is the voice of God. You might stay there with your guns, and they shot comrades down, which is very painful, pains me to date. But that was the highlight. It showed that when the time of an idea has come, you cannot corrupt your way out of it. You cannot shoot your way out of it. You cannot barricade your way out of it. Mm-hmm. It was the most important part, the occupation of Parliament. Because remember, occupation of State House would have happened because earlier, people went and danced and got to Gate A. When people that night, people thought that was a joke. It's just that the young people of Kenya were not interested. We are not interested in causing anarchy in our country.
Really?
We are not interested.
That is what you've been accused of.
We are not interested in burning down this country because we love it. We want to work in it. That's why we're refusing being sent abroad to work as domestic workers. We're refusing to be given passports to sell us out as slaves. If you're going to give us passport, give us the same opportunities you're giving the children of the political elite. That's around the occupation of Parliament.
So are you worried that had that not happened, then the finance bill would not have been dropped?
It would not have been dropped. Because remember, when do people occupy parliament? It is after how many peaceful demonstrations? Two nationwide peaceful demonstrations. But still the political class, they started by calling us digital wankers. They called us cool kids. They are always trying to find a way to divide and conquer. But then they realized that even if you take Kaskazini and you give Kaskazini money today, that will do nothing to the movement. If you pay whoever you think is a leading voice, you would look like and they say, this could be the leader. Immediately rejected. They put them down and they say, we are moving forward as a cause. Without us agitating and advancing, the president would not have backed down. Because you see even his government running around saying that we disagree with the president, but we respect his decision. We still would have voted yes. It's that hubris, that audacity of the political class that we were fighting against and telling them that your time is now over. We've not seen those cars that used to overlap, driving on the wrong side in long motorcades. We haven't seen those anymore. You hear now they're taking refuge in hotels. And it is that discomfort that we're inviting them to sit in, because that's how it feels like to be unemployed. That's how it feels like. Because people say that they were shooting rowdy people. Explain the child who was shot in their home. The child who had just come from Mercy, who had just come from school and received a bullet in her mother's house. Explain Shudra Kennedy, a 12-year-old boy who we now have to look at as a point of reference for bad governance. Tell me what he was doing. Explain to me the autistic boy who was shot down, who was just going to look for his siblings. So you cannot say that there was shooting people who were not peaceful. And then the authority has the audacity to tell us that protesters, goons, took a gun from a police officer and started shooting at random. It is that kind of audacity, that kind of shamelessness in the political class that we seek to because if you understand the kind of spite people have for the police force, and especially the rogue police force, you will understand that if a person took a gun and started shooting aimlessly, they would not shoot at citizens. They would shoot at the policemen. Because it is the policemen who have taken lives. And some of them are still walking scot-free. But they are somehow able to find people who breached parliament, and some bodies are now surfacing in water bodies. People are being abducted and getting lost without a trace. But they cannot arrest killer cops. IPOA refuses to give us these kinds of reports. So the breach of parliament was a proof that a people united can never be defeated. And two, that when the youth, kuna siku moja mayouth wataungana, na waliungana hiyo siku. Yes.
So after it was dropped by the president, then why continue with the course?
We continued because the finance bill was the agenda item. People think that this movement was just about a finance bill. Remember, that finance bill was just there to raise an additional about 360 billion. It was not that, the finance bill was not going to finance the whole budget, because the appropriations bill was also going on at the same time. And Senate, the conflict of interest bill that allows parliamentarians to investigate themselves, take away that mandate from maybe EACC from the documents that we've read online, unless they changed them. The whole being able to trade with the government as a civil servant, as the ability of you to close and quash an investigation after 90 days if not found guilty. Those kinds of things, those kinds of sinister motives and moves from the political class are part of what we're calling bad governance. That's why we're saying these are not anti-government protests. These are pro-good governance protests. And so after that bill was rejected, they thought that that's all we were interested in. But we were saying, we are looking into this microscopically, having an analytic and scientific mind, dissecting all the areas, saying we will deal with graft, we will audit this public debt, and do all those kinds of things. And also what the president did was unconstitutional, because he cannot claim that after the second reading past committee, now it's just waiting for presidential assent, that he wants to send it back to Bunge and say that that Bunge now has to repeal it. It has to follow due process. And that's actually what we are saying, that if you want to do anything, you must do it constitutionally in this country. That's why this is a fight for constitutionalism. The Constitution and justice is our shield and our defender.
Kasmuel.
Yes.
There was a constant thing.
Yes.
during this time. Hashtags.
Yes.
Reject finance bill. There was where is Billy?
Yes.
Where is Osama?
Right.
And there was also where is Kaskazini?
Right.
Where is Kasmuel?
Right.
You went missing, didn't you?
I did.
What happened?
I went missing, and that came from a point of consistent harassment from the plainclothes police. I think I could account for the people I saw on ground because of their behavior, but also very curiously because the Wednesday after I break into international media and media claim, the first day where I'm holding a canister and those kinds of things, I was out at around midnight, and I was in Kilimani area, and I just parked, and a character, a bald man with a trench coat, came to my door and starts telling me, unajua mimi nilikuwa student leader kule USIU. And I'm like, why is this your opening statement? Like, habari boss, unaendeleaje? Unajua mimi nilikuwa, and I thought, I was like, are you begging me for something, or what is it that you're up to? Mm-hmm. And he had this demeanor of a person who knew that they had authority over me because they were not trying to steal from me. Because if he wanted to steal, he would already have roughed me up, but he did not. So he keeps on telling me this. I'm like, and I panic. So I run. I tell him, I don't run. I rush to be. I walk briskly and tell him, naingia hapa Quickmart kununua chakula. So let's get in. And so we get in and we do. And he still follows me. He's talking and he's telling me, so unasema nini, hebu ngoja kidogo. And in my head, I felt like this is authoritative demeanor. Mm-hmm. So he says, he tells me some things and I'm like, nikusaidiaje boss? Nikununulie chakula kwa sababu sitakupea pesa, sina pesa. And then I rushed where people were, and 3 armed police officers come into the place, and they leave with the man, not escorting the man, but they leave together. I seemed as if he was in church.
Uniform?
Yes. Now the 3 men were in uniform, mm-hmm. And then on coming out, I see a police truck that was not previously there. So I wait for it, and now of course there's some people and there's a bit of commotion. So I get in and I drive off. And now that got me awake to the fact that I probably could be tailed, because how was that the opening statement? Because if I met you, I would not tell you, my name is Kasmuel and I was a student leader in Tuko. Mm-hmm. Yes, I'd just be like, hey boss, what's your name? And what do you do? So after that, when I got into the streets on Thursday, I was being harassed consistently by plainclothes officers. And then the next Tuesday, when people breach Parliament, it becomes even more serious. And at the time, we did activations in town, and there are people who consistently, and I remember even seeing people who had stones and they were trying to infiltrate whatever it is that we're doing and trying to lob stones. And consistently there's the armed and uniformed police men, women, and then there's also the plainclothes. Lucky for me, I was assisted by a crowd, because consistently in the work that we were doing, we knew each other. We formed friendships and we were like, we saw you yesterday and this and that, and people helped me. And there's even videos of people saying, hakuna kitu atakufanyia hapa, just address the nation. Wako sawa, hawezi kufanyia kitu ukiwa hapa, tuko na wewe. And so I managed, even when I got out of town, on a boda, and I asked some of the people, please follow me with bikes so that nothing happens. And so we go, and I get to All Saints Cathedral. We do a little bit of activation out there, and we talk to the crowd because it had been barricaded. We told them, don't lose hope. Did our thing and addressed the crowds, 1, 2, 1, 2, and got in there, and there was a medical facility that was free. And so it was organizing the coordination of, because Jamia was overwhelmed, because remember now, people have breached Parliament. It's now getting heavier. There are more casualties, and Jamia was out of capacity. But All Saints, the team at All Saints had capacity. So I got into All Saints and asked the team at Jamia to bring some of the casualties there. And while that was happening, got a bit chaotic. And now also there are people who gave me a tip and told me, these are plain cops and they're coming this direction. So I rushed out and told my friend, please come with me so that you can take my car in case of anything and act as a decoy. So I got into the car, left the cathedral and drove off. I wanted to go and hide someplace at my mentor's house. I cannot disclose it because still it's one of the viable places I can be. And I was on the fork just after Prestige. There's a fork that goes into Kibra, and then there's one that goes into Gong Road. A Probox with 4 armed men was tailing us aggressively. And so instead of going on Gong Road, because we were at the lights and we were like this, and so I just bought a bit of time And then in terms of destruction, went this way. And we're like, well, yeah, now we follow this. This is what we're going to do. Please take the car from here. I wanted to drop him because I also didn't want to expose him as much. So I told him, I'd want you to take the car so that you leave me at a certain place where I'll come and ask my mentor to come and get me. Because I have one place, as things have been consistently now, I started getting random calls from private numbers telling we're watching you, those kinds of things, and people threaten me, and then also just the collective public saying you have to be safe. So I have strategic places where I could go here, friends who I will not disclose. So in one of those places, that's where I wanted to go, to one of my mentor's place, and I wanted him to drop me at a significantly far place so that if anyone was tailing me, they would not know where I was going, because I don't want that place to ever be blown. So I told him, leave me around some place uko ina Karen, and then take the car somewhere. Then as I'm waiting, so he takes the car and he takes off. As I'm waiting, I'm trying to, make phone calls, because remember, I'm told that I'm being tracked. So I'm trying to make WhatsApp calls and those kinds of things. There's a car that also was very aggressively tailing us. And so some men just appeared. And I was taken. So I was taken Tuesday. And I think the disconnect for people is for how long? It was just Tuesday night, and people made a lot of noise. And I'm very grateful to the Kenyan people, because at that point, they were not, it had not gotten to the point where these things were violent. It was mostly psychological torture. And the kind of questions these people were asking is, what is your involvement? Who's paying you? Who's sending you to do these kinds of things? Those kinds of things. But also part of the things that I was very afraid of is because I had shared my struggles, my mental health struggles, saying that I was suicidal. I felt as if they would do something to me and say, and later I would surface as a suicidal case. So that's what got me really afraid, because I was like, oh man, I played into this playbook quite well. But Wednesday happens, and there's a lot of furor and uproar online. And these people, and I keep on saying that they let me escape, and I say escape in quotes, because I don't think they were going to maybe let me escape if it were not for the aggressive surge. And I also do not know whether these people were cops or not, because that's the other thing. In this period, it's been very difficult to identify who's police force and who's not. And so on Wednesday, after this whole thing...
Before Wednesday, where did they take you?
Well, that part I cannot account for, because I was blind. I'm blind Tuesday into the night. But I surfaced in Langata area, Kibra area, or Tiende sides. And I'm in a car, and they tell me, tutakutana na wewe. Yeah, tutakutana na wewe.
So they dropped you around Langata?
Yes. So that's where, and then I call my mentor, and I tell him, please come and pick me. And I also text my father and tell him, Dad, I'm not sure I'm safe, because this feels as if I had just escaped this thing by a whisker. It feels, because even the text that I sent was, I have escaped to the LSK, I have escaped, I'm safe. Because part of me felt like I've outsmarted these people. They're like, oh, takutana nini, and that running away. And so I call a mentor of mine, to the mentor to whose house I was supposed to go to. And he tells me he's on his way. And so he comes and tells me, take out your SIM card, whatnot, those kinds of things. Also these prompts, that USSD prompts, the *29#, those stars, the things for tracking that were going around there, like, because there was fishy activity on my phone as well. And so I do all those kinds of things, and we do them around that area. Tells me, take it off, because of the cell towers. We didn't want also just the tracking thing. So I get in the car, and then we leave. At the time, I could not ascertain my safety. Because these are people who, after someone tells you that they're going to see you again, it probably means that they're pretty confident that they could find you. And now that's where my safety concerns come. So I decided not to tell the world that I was okay on Wednesday. At least not during the day, because we had to ascertain. And so I'm blind. I was kept in a private room, and all was just be safe. So I got a change of clothes, and the suit I was wearing the day before is still in my mentor's house. So that's another thing which I've seen people ask. So why did he not show up in the same clothes? And because I was in a private room on Wednesday, and Wednesday during the day into Thursday. So my mentor tells me, okay, it's fine. You could, I think it's safe now because now the president makes his speech and those kinds of things, and it sounds as if it's cooled down significantly. And so I think I tweet in the middle of the night that I'm okay and those kinds of things. And people do not believe it.
And especially when you show up the following day in the...
Not even just before then, people are just like, oh yeah, people do not believe that, is it you? Send us video proof and those kinds of things. And I'm in a house, I'm tweeting at like 3 a.m. and those kinds of things, so I couldn't record a video. So the next day, I show up home in sweats. I never wear sweatpants. I show up in sweats and a t-shirt and a hoodie and a cape. So I call this pal of mine, I tell him, bring the car to such and such a place. I told him to bring the car at Legend, Karen. Bring the car at Legend. I will ask to be dropped at Legend. And I tell my friends, hey, listen, just in case anything happened, that there was a tracker in the car, that in the period where I had not seen my car, that it had been compromised. Again, because I've learned this time to have very high trust issues, because part of the people who even bullied my younger siblings were my very close friends during this whole period. So I get home and I tell my neighbors, hey, listen, I'm coming back home from Karen. In case of anything, have your cameras on. Tell my friends, hey, listen, it's me. You're going to see me in the flesh. I'm coming. And what got me so mad is when I got my phone, I saw that children had been killed. I couldn't take it. And people are saying, do not march to State House. I'm like, how can you say this online? I said, I'm going into the ground. If we are marching, we are marching. If we realize that it's too volatile and we will retreat, but it has to be down on the ground. So I get into the house, change up real quickly, wear into a gray suit, a fresh suit. I always have like a supply of fresh suits. Get into the streets. Immediately I get there, I meet some protesters who are very peaceful. Police are harassing these people now. I get there, I do a bit of a media interview on Al Jazeera. And so my logic has always been, hide in front of the media because there's a bit of decorum. But now we've seen that they're lobbying. They don't care about anyone. And the police, curiously enough, the police that were deployed on town that day were not from Nairobi. Because I remember I was doing an address at Nation Media, and there was something about me. They pointed my direction and they lobbed a tear gas canister to the media house directly where we were having that interview. Nation Media on that day had a broken window. I even have like an audio recording where I was talking to a friend and the soldiers told me, hide in this closet. These people watakumaliza if you stay in the streets. And so they were like, we kaa tu hapa, tutakuletea maji kama ni chakula, kaa tu hadi ishe, alafu utatoka baadaye. So that now, it becomes, I didn't understand what the uproar for that was, because in my head I was like, because even my family was very mad. They were like, what do you mean you've just come back and you want to go back to the streets? I was like, if there is a way you can convince people who are boots on ground, you don't do it remotely. You don't do it like these old guards do, who are trying to give us directions and they don't show up in the streets. They tell us, do this, occupy this, do it this way, and they don't show up on the streets. I said, as a person who's been on the streets, the only way to talk to fellow comrades is by going to the streets and saying, hey, comrades, what do you think?
So you are dispelling the facts that those people who are saying that you faked your abduction.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, by the time, because I decided not to talk about it, how I process things is I go into a period of silence. To the point where, because part of my coping mechanism is humor, and until I can joke about it, I try not to address it. But I got to the point where, because also you find that there are also people who did this opportunistically. Part of the people that we feel have decamped did this opportunistically. Now it's casting shadows and aspersions, but it is a thing where it's almost as if you're supposed to be in real danger consistently. And so for me, it got to the point where I realized at this point I have to take care of my safety, and I'll do it the best way I know how, while also contributing to the movement. Because I said I will dispense as much knowledge and as much information about this movement, about the things that we are doing at a personal capacity, until the message reaches home. I can speak for the person who's in Dandora or Kawangware or in any slum or in any establishment, university or home, who cannot make it in front of the cameras. Hopefully that I can communicate the ideas that we talk about clearly enough for them to be heard as well. Yeah, so not even as a position as that I'm the leader, no. I'm just, my eloquence is my contribution to the movement. Yes.
I think currently,
yes,
most people, even those who were we can say they were not very active politically.
Right.
They are politically woke.
Yes.
Let's talk about the president's space.
Yes. Yes.
How did you feel about it? How would you describe it? Did it fulfill your desires?
I will say authoritatively that it did not. And I boycotted that space intentionally because the idea was...
Then if you boycotted, how would you know it not fulfill?
Because we have seen this president on camera over the years. And there's nothing that he would have said in the space that he could not do constitutionally without coming on the space. And the space was a knee-jerk reaction. And as Kenyans, as young Kenyans, we had decided to boycott the space. And we were supposed to organize a parallel space. So much to our chagrin and disbelief, when the person who was supposed to organize a parallel space is the one that hosted the president. That took us aback. It took me aback because I remember I was trying to see what's going on. Why are people still joining this actual space? Because what happened is I went to the person's page to join the parallel space in solidarity with fellow Kenyans, because even earlier in the day, when the X space poster for the president had been circulated, the same person had plastered a fake, that fake tag, saying, this is fake, we will have this one hosted by Jacob Juma. We will be hosting Jacob Juma, the ghost of Jacob Juma in the space. And so it took us aback. And this is not to say that we had delegated leadership to him. I think there was a crew that was working sinisterly for selfish interests. And this is bound to happen. It's bound to happen where people are living in poverty and someone gives them the promise of money. It is wont to happen that some people will take it. But my radical stance has always been, do not touch a politician's money, because he will talk about it and you will forever be beholden to them. And so part of it is just learning the virtue of saying no, so that you can be able to say no to bigger deals. Because right now, if you cannot say no to 1 million, what makes you think that 10 years later, when you're supposed to stand for the integrity of the Kenyans, you will be able to say no to 200 million? Yeah, it starts small. So in boycotting the space, so we realized that the person who was hosting it, and it is sort of like a regular clique which started as speakers, and it's part of the people who are participating in the smear campaign against me and other vocal people. And not to say that it was without fault, because part of it was people just posting sensationalizing certain issues. Even on Thursday, when I got into a bit of heat, the same people who were driving this agenda are the people who felt, who had decamped, they're the people who had said, we will not host this. But then you would see subliminally that they're starting to ease off and say, yes, what if the president comes to the space? We should let this so-and-so question them, those kinds of things. And so it became, it felt like a blow to the movement, because it was betrayal, not betrayal because the individual did the thing, but there's people who trusted this individual as a voice that had been raised against the establishment, trusted him with information, trusted him with sensitive details about their lives and locations that now could be compromised and given to the state. So that's I feel that's the angle of betrayal. It doesn't, hosting the president is nothing. You could host a president. He's a citizen who has the freedom of speech as well. But if you present yourself as a person who's for the people, and you collect information and secrets and whatnot, and then suddenly at the very end, you go and feed it to we are not sure if you're going to uphold it. If you say this and you do this, we're not sure if you would uphold it from a point of integrity. And our radical position as young people has always been, we do not want to dialogue this government. We do not elect it for dialogue. Our X spaces have consistently been the place where we air our woes, we air our views and say that this is what we are going through and this is what we are feeling, and this, to crystallize the leading idea, to supplement whatever it is that we know, to add and say, yes, we rejected finance bill, but now they're unconstitutional places. We want the CAS position scrapped. We want the Office of First Lady not to receive that money. Office of the Second Lady, Office of Prime Cabinet Lady's wife. We do not want the Office of the Distant Relatives to receive any funding. We want the one graft to be actualized. So that's what we do on the spaces. And we call each other out and we call each other in. So we say that you've made a mistake, but hey, we can reel you back. But there are things from which we cannot recover. If you're in bed with the government, if you're in dalliance with the government that has been oppressing us, that becomes very hard to realize. And that's why people are very wary of being termed government projects. And consistently said that we will agitate and you do exactly what you have to do for the movement. And we try and do it in accordance to chapter 6, which is about leadership and integrity, mostly focusing on the integrity part. Yes.
This movement
Yes.
has also pricked the conscience of the church.
Yes.
Do you go to church yourself?
I do. I do. And the church, I'm one to believe that church and state should be separate. But the church, and when I say the church, you have to be of good discernment to know what I mean. So do not sensationalize this part. The church leaders, some church leaders in the country stood and told us that President William Ruto was a God-given leader. And if they can hear from God in the times of giving them a leader, giving us a leader, is it not possible that the same God would reveal to them when the people are being oppressed? Why is it that they are conscious of their God when it's time to go and collect handouts in State House, but their God somehow cannot reveal to them that families that have lost loved ones need condoling with? Why is it that this God reveals to them what they're supposed to get when they're getting the brown envelopes? It reveals to them the way, the truth, and the light. But in times when the going members are suffering, this God is silent. We saw this from the church, and I'm not one to politicize the church. I believe that politics should stay out of the church. And that's why you would find someone like Mwambili doing the Lord's work by ensuring the politicians. He's the politicians and the church's nightmare. He's called the TL elder. And we refuse the fundraisers. And you see part of what it said in the concessions that they've made as government is that they will not participate in Harambes. And we are grateful for that. Grateful it's applauding a fish for swimming. We acknowledge that finally the wax in your ears has reduced as a political class. But the church, suddenly, when people started talking, they now started organizing sermons and lauding the Gen Zs and calling them to the front and praying with them and telling them, but we are behind you. But for a greater part of the start, they were silent. And it is the silence of the church during our time of oppression that we said we are not interested in. If this is what you're doing, if you're going to be in bed with the government, if you're going to support a corrupt regime, we will occupy those churches as well. And so it was a moment of political conscience, which drove also sane sermons from our pulpits and no manipulation or spiritual bypassing from the clergy.
You said the movement, Gen Z movement, is leaderless, tribeless. What are the less?
It's fearless.
It's fearless.
Yes, and it's peaceful as well.
And peaceful.
Yes.
So fearless, leaderless, tribeless,
and peaceful. Yes.
There are those aspersions or accusations of betrayal within.
Yes.
Is the movement dead?
The movement cannot be dead. It cannot be dead. Remember, do you know the amount of work we've done in just 3 weeks? We've made a whole president stay grounded. Person who used to fly out every other day has now not left the country, not even going for the Olympics or the swearing in of other heads of state. He has not been going to church to do whatever it is that they were doing. And even this is true for the political class. Their hubris has come down. And in any movement, there is bound to be times when we will disagree. There's bound to be times when people will decamp. There are people who will sell their souls. There are people who will be bought by money. And there are people who will hold to their integrity. And only time can tell. So I think it would be really unfair for people to judge us based on 2-3 dissenting voices or 2-3 notable individuals who've decamped versus the amount of work we've done. When people say this, nothing has like a 100% efficiency rate. But if I look at this in terms of success, we're in the 99th percentile. We have occupied parliament, almost occupied State House, and now all the roads are barricaded. We have shown people that protests can be done peacefully. We have shown people that there needs to be reforms in the police sector. We are reforming ministries, ministry by ministry. We are dealing with corruption at a citizen level. We have forced the president to rethink the load that he's been giving us in terms of the people that he's employing unnecessarily. We want him to form a leaner government. And unfortunately, we've also lost lives. We have had people who've lost lives to the cause. So it is not... the movement has just begun and it is still going on. We're still formulating and solidifying the ideas. So a few individuals cannot be used to judge the whole. Yes.
how would you rate the legitimacy of the current parliament as we speak?
While the current parliament might be legitimate, the current parliamentarians are an illegitimate crop. They are self-serving, narcissistic, egoistic, self-pursuing individuals who have not the interest of the country at heart. Of course, there are a few exceptions who are working in the silence, but you know what they say about politicians, that 90% tarnish the name of the 10%, the few. And so when we look at it, it is up to the good ones to see this wake-up call and tell the other ones who are doing wrong that do the right thing, or they suffer with the majority of them, because we have them taking our talking points and treating them as talking points, while these things are things we are willing to fight for to the death. These are things we are committed to. When we say we want every school-going child to have food, we mean it. It's not just a talking point. When we say the war against corruption should be taken seriously, we do not just say this for clout. We mean it. When we say that we will occupy ministries and have meritocracy in these ministries, we mean it. When we say that we want these people to cut down on unnecessary government expenditure, we mean it. But then they take them and use very flowery language and pose very striking arguments in the August House, thinking that they're going to fool us. And that's why when we say Ruto must go, we mean the entire government, the whole political ilk that thinks that they can hoodwink us, that think that they can sow disunity and discord amongst us, because that's what we've seen. Suddenly, choppers and the helipad at KICC was working. But when we needed choppers for flood victims, where were the choppers? Parliamentarians have the audacity, the self-serving narcissistic audacity to get into ambulances, to run away under a tunnel into Bunge Towers, to flee tear gas, while our bodies lie lifeless on the ground. Brains are down there. Brains of a person who was exercising their constitutional right. Casualties have to be carried by comrades, while you're walking around, taking even the little that we have, driving out in ambulances. So we have no faith in this political class, and that's what we keep on saying, that we will occupy until all of them shape up and show up, or shut up and shift off.
Wow. You are very convinced of your cause.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what is it that drives you as a person every day you wake up?
That I cannot answer this and pretend that I am the most driven person. I struggle with a lot. As we speak, I have not been working. Just been eating into my savings, funding myself, doing all these things. That's why it also pains me when I realize that there are people who are making money from these demonstrations. But that does not distract me, because the cause I believe in, I believe that Kenya is bigger than myself. I believe that if I do this, my children do not have to suffer. I believe that there's a youth somewhere who would wish to make it to my position at least, and just enjoy 3 square meals a day, enjoy a good employment where they can pursue their passions. The notion of a country, my patriotism, the flag, our national anthem, the spirit of Ujamaa and Ubuntu is what drives me. Knowing that I have so much love, so much zeal, so much hope around me, that there are people who look at me and say, keep going, that if I may be able to even inspire one more person, I will do it. It's the people of Kenya, the unity in our voices, the power of this movement, the leaderlessness, the boldness, the fearlessness, the tribelessness, the hope for a better country, the country that the people before us could only dream about and write about in fantasy. That's what drives me, that one day we can have a better Kenya for all of us, not a preserve of the few, but one Kenya where all of us are equal before the law, where we get opportunities in terms of merit, and one where critical positions are not offered as political favors.
What is the way forward in terms of making laws in Parliament with what happened now? Because how will bills go through Parliament? Will they pass? Will they flop? Or what do you think will happen?
The parliamentarians will have to act right, because remember, the majority of the youth population is unemployed. So we have made this our employment, and we have made good governance our volunteer. We'll do it on a volunteer basis. And remember, a volunteer is a very dangerous person, because they're doing it out of faith and belief. So when we say we will occupy every Tuesday and every Thursday, do not dare us, do not joke around with us, because we do not have work. We will do this every Tuesday and every Thursday. We will occupy and clean up these ministries one by one. We will shadow every appointed position and show the government that this is what happens. You've seen what Hanifa has been able to do with a couple of millions that were raised with the goodwill of Kenyans. But we also do not want to privatize public problems. We want to show them that we will not do this housing levy because we refuse to pay this housing levy because we do not know how many people it's going to benefit. Or you lie to us that it creates the jobs. Who are going to be the occupants? The people who are displaced, who are on riparian land, families, people who are living now displaced were given 10,000. We will fight for those people. And we keep on saying that this movement will go on, whether or not there is a luminary. If, for example, I am not here, there's going to arise a more eloquent, a more sophisticated looking, a bolder person. There's nothing special about me in this movement. This is just my time, and I will contribute as much as I can to the movement until we pass the baton. It is not about trying to form a cult around myself or trying to prop myself as a leader. It's about me contributing, just like the people who brought water to us in the streets, just like the people you have consistently dedicated yourselves to giving us these stories. It's no more important the role that we are playing in this movement. So the movement will not die. And the parliamentarians better act right, because we have said we will audit everything. We will use technology and we will expose this rot that is there. We will run this country the way it's supposed to be run. And we do not want to reinvent the wheel. We want the constitution that was passed in 2010 to be implemented to the latter. We want you guys to act in accordance with the constitution. And a lot of them ask, and very pretentiously so, what do you mean follow the constitution? As a legislator, you know exactly what it means. You represent my voice. So I do not have to demonstrate. You should be saying this interest. But if you look at us and you say that our images are photoshopped, we will show you that your position is photoshopped as well. If you look at us and you call us cool kids, we will show you what cool kids can do. If you look at us and you call us digital wankers, we will show you...
let's not go there.
Yes, we will show you what it is that you can and cannot do. And we have decided that we will follow the rule of the law. Because remember, we are peaceful, but we are also passionate. Let nobody lie to us. That we remain unbowed and undeterred in our mission. Yes.
Have threats stopped coming your way?
Threats have stopped coming my way. I would say significantly. Or I've just grown oblivious. You know, a lot of people sometimes also try and the people who maybe could be trying to lord over you and tell you you will die. I have received intel that they're planning to do this. I've received intel for you to be careful on the road, that they're going to try to kill you in an accident. Do not drive at night. Do not be predictable with your schedule. Do not eat anywhere. Do not drink anywhere. Those kinds of things. Those have showed up, and it always is showing up. But until a time when the country is liberated, until a time when we can freely walk. This is not how I envisioned I'd be spending my 20s. But if this is what it means for us to have a country that is in order, I'm willing to do it. Yes.
Talking of your 20s, kuna mabadi, there are buddies here who are asking, are you taken? Are you single? Are you
man.
A family man?
Right.
They would clobber me if I don't ask this.
Yeah. I have a girlfriend that I love very much. And it's a beautiful thing. I remember one of the stories I saw when I was missing is that I was in a girl's house in Ngara, in I think Studio Joyland, apartment number D4, and I've consistently said, knowing how good it feels to have one girlfriend, I cannot imagine the joy it would increase for me to have two. So if you're the girl that I was in your house, babe, please come back home. But yeah, I'm in a committed relationship, and we are navigating this together. It's beautiful. She has been very supportive. She has been very instrumental in my mental stability, and we've navigated this together. It's just, for me, it is a revolutionary love. It is even how I've saved her in my phone is Comrade, her name. It's absolutely beautiful, and love has been one of the key drivers for this. Yes.
And now you say that you've found a new purpose, that you will now overcome the situation where you're found with a rope. Right.
Absolutely. I think, and if anyone is struggling with mental illness or struggling, stay. If you see me here in this interview, in this camera, it's not that my life is perfect. It's not that I am a perfect human being. It's not that I'm more privileged than you. I'm just proof that even you can do it. So if you're struggling with whatever mental thing you're going through or suicide, I'm just asking you to stay one extra day. Stay, just take it a moment by moment, hour by hour, until we figure it out. If you're going through financial difficulty, if you're going through heartbreak, if you're going through confusion in your life and you're feeling like It's not, or sometimes your brain is just misfiring, because I was not going through any traumatic experience. It was just a misfire of the brain. I'm just asking you, stay. You're worth it. It works if you work it, so work it, because you're worth it.
Wow. Please do that again. If you work it, if you're worth it.
It works if you work it. And this is the thing which I learned in hospital when we were doing a lot of these things, where you have to work it. If you're struggling through an addiction or whatever it is.
Work it.
Work it. It works if you work it. So work it, because you're worth it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Take home.
Yes.
As I was doing a research on you,
Yes.
A hospital rejected you at some point?
Yes. Yes. And that was on, I wouldn't term it a rejection, it was a mistreatment. On that night when I was struggling, I went to a hospital and I wanted to get psychological support. And I was saying I'm in a very bad place and I needed some drugs, but I also needed to see a doctor. And they told me that the doctor was not, they sent me to the emergency room. And they just got me someone to do the prescription. At the time, I needed somebody to help me navigate those thoughts that I was going through. But unfortunately, that was not to be the case. And that night, I almost took my life. So I'm fortunate for friends and family, but also that could be a different discussion, because I feel like, and we will occupy that mental health sector as well. We're coming for it. I know it's still under health. So once you post the interns, we'll clean up that thing, because a lot of people are using it as a cash cow to take advantage of vulnerable people. A lot of hospitals do that. And I have cases, it's happened to me as well, where I was mismedicated, misdiagnosed, and maltreated in these mental institutions. So yeah, we'll clean that up as well.
Now, there are several significant moments in the country, defining moments, if you want to say. Independence, that is 1963.
Yes.
Now let these millennials call this Gen Z.
School me. Let me now go to school. Let's go, sir.
Defining moments like independence in 1963.
Yes.
The death of the president 15 years later, 1978.
Yes.
1982.
Yes.
The attempted coup,
which my grandfather, one of my grandfathers, was a part of and placed in solitary.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Then 1992,
yes,
the repeal of Section 2A.
Yes.
I see this Gen Z is learned. Are you a lawyer?
Let's go. I'm a teacher. I'm a finance guy. Yes.
And then 2002, the opposition took power from the government.
Right. The referendum.
2005, 2007, 2008, post-election violence, 2010 promulgation of the Constitution, and the administration that came after that as the first one to deal with the devolution and all that.
Yes.
Now, there are significant people, there are names that are tagged along that historical journey.
Yes.
How do you feel when you know that your name will be pegged upon 2024? Because this is a defining moment for the country.
Right.
Everyone agrees.
Right.
It is a defining moment.
Right.
Yes, we might be at a crossroad right now, but it's a defining moment.
Yes,
how do you feel when you know that your name is part of this moment?
Whether or not my name is part of this moment, I will feel proud if my children reap the harvests of these efforts. If my name goes down the annals of history, I will be grateful, because this is a rare opportunity. And this is not to assume that I've done a greater work than the rest of the comrades who show up on the streets and show out. If it so happens that my name will show up in the rolls of history, then so be it. I would be grateful. But I'm not obsessed with that as much as I'm obsessed with us getting good governance. Because what use is a good name without functional systems? It's like having a lovely clothing and you're sickly in your body. It's like having a nice exterior to your car and you have engine problems. So if we fix the engine, that will be totally fine. But there are going to be very many names, not just mine. There are going to be very, very many names of people who we will remember. History will remember kindly. So if you're watching this, we will remember you kindly. Everyone from the Shujaa Ken who died at 12 years to Rex who died at 29 and the people in between, to the people who've gone before us. And we will also remember the people who tried to kill our dreams. We'll also remember the people who oppressed us. And we will not forget. Yes.
Please do that line again. Work it. It will work if you work it.
It works if you work. It works if you work it. So work it. You're worth it. Sober or whatever it is, because you're.
Thank you so much, Kasmuel.
Yes.
You are one person that we can listen to the entirety.
Thank you, sir.
But because of time limitations.
Yes.
Let's end it here.
Absolutely.
Probably we'll meet in another forum.
Yes, sir.
And discuss more because, as you said, this is a journey.
Yes.
That is beginning.
Yes, sir.
We'll have results and fruits and we'll see.
Right.
Sit and look at how it all panned out from the beginning to where we'll be at that particular time.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, King Ori.
Yes.
This is an amazing job you guys are doing.
Before we go.
Yes.
You said Yura, what's your profession?
I studied finance. I teach music and perform music and compose. And I also make suits. So I'm a jack of all trades. I'm a swimmer. I do all these kinds of things. Yeah.
Now, what song can you dedicate to this particular moment? And maybe you can give us a rendition.
Oh man, I couldn't. But part of the songs that we've been singing, songs like Yote Yawezekana or Sita Simama Maovu Yakitawala. Sita Simama Maovu Yakitawala. Those kinds of songs that we've been singing. Daima Mimi Mkenya, Mwananchi Mzalendo. Those, we've been singing so many songs in the struggle, and I just need us to remind you, when the Constitution says the people of Kenya are sovereign, we the people of Kenya, it's talking about you. You're sovereign. Don't let anybody sell your soul.
Thank you, bro.
Thank you very much for having me. An amazing job you guys are doing over here. Keep it up.
On behalf of the public.
Thank you, sir.
I can't add anything. I can't subtract anything from this conversation with Kasmuel McOure. My name is Kingori Wangeshi, but because this is a digital conversation, or this is a Gen Z and we're having a conversation around digital matters, if you're there and would like to improve your skills, this is what you do. Go ahead.
How do you get a start in digital marketing? You can start with this Tuko copywriting course. You learn creative writing techniques, social media copywriting, SEO, how to use AI tools effectively, attracting new clients, and more. Enroll now.